Sierra Calder never believed a single direct message could change the entire course of her life. At 29, she was a freelance videographer living in Manila, juggling late-night editing jobs, wedding shoots, and small commercial gigs just to stay afloat. Her life was noisy, crowded, chaotic, and painfully predictable. Wake, edit, shoot, repeat. No real relationships, no vacations, and no time to breathe. All of that changed on a humid Friday evening when she posted a drone shot of a cliff dive she recorded for a client. 20 minutes later, she got a notification. Elijah Hart liked your video. She didn't know the name, but the profile caught her eye, blue verification badge, thousands of followers, and a feed full of high-adrenaline adventure videos across the world. Snowboarding, freediving, desert racing. He looked like a man carved straight from a travel documentary. She thought nothing of it until he messaged her. Your aerial tracking skills are unreal. Ever considered filming extreme expeditions? Sierra laughed. People online said a lot of things. Still, she replied. And that one reply spiraled into days of nonstop conversation. Elijah was charming, quick-witted, deeply curious about her work. He knew camera gear, editing techniques, and how to talk about cinematography like a true pro. No cheesy lines, no weird flirting. He made her feel seen, professionally and personally. 3 days in, he sent a voice message. His voice was smooth, American, confident. The kind of voice that could sell anything, even trust. He told her he was planning a private survival expedition on a remote island off Palawan. He needed a videographer. The pay? Double her usual rate for half the work. The catch? She would need to travel with him for 3 days to a restricted zone, only accessible through his team's private boat. It sounded insane, but thrilling. Her best friend, Kay, wasn't impressed. Sierra, you can't just fly somewhere with a stranger who films himself almost dying for fun. At least verify his identity. Sierra did search him up. Everything checked out. Interviews, partnerships with big brands, even a documentary clip on a major streaming service. He seemed legit. Too legit, maybe. Elijah sent the final message that sealed her decision. Trust me, Sierra, this trip could change your career forever. And so, 1 week later, Sierra boarded a flight to the province of Palawan, ready for what she thought would be the biggest opportunity of her life. But as her plane touched down on the island runway, the alarms in her gut began to buzz. Because Elijah wasn't the one who came to pick her up. Not even close. Who was the stranger holding her name on a cardboard sign? And why did he insist Elijah sent him for her own safety? The airport in Palawan was small, quiet, and humid, a stark contrast to Manila's constant chaos. Sierra stepped outside, scanning the crowd for Elijah's familiar face. He had said he'd be waiting right outside the arrival's gate, but he wasn't. Instead, she saw a tall, muscular man in a black long-sleeve shirt holding a cardboard sign that read, Sierra Calder, Heart Expedition. Her stomach tightened. That wasn't the deal. Elijah never mentioned anyone else picking her up. Sierra approached cautiously. Hi, I'm Sierra. Are you with Elijah? The man nodded once. His expression stayed stiff, unreadable. Name's Rocco. I'm his logistics lead. Elijah got delayed finalizing permits with the Coast Guard. He sent me to escort you to the marina. Something was off. He had the physique of a bouncer, not a logistics manager. And his Tagalog was fluent, too fluent for a foreign expedition crew. Sierra forced a smile. Can I call Elijah? Just to confirm? Rocco reached for her luggage. Signal's bad here. He said to move quickly. Weather's shifting. Storm front coming. Sierra's instincts screamed. But her career hopes whispered louder. Maybe this was normal for big productions. Maybe she was overthinking. She followed him to a black SUV with tinted windows. Inside, the air conditioning blasted cold. Rocco drove fast, too fast, down a coastal highway surrounded by thick jungle. The silence was uncomfortable. You work with Elijah often? She asked. First assignment. He replied without emotion. That didn't help. They passed a checkpoint manned by local security. Rocco flashed an ID she couldn't see. Clearly, the guards waved them through without hesitation. Sierra's heartbeat spiked. Where? Were they taking her that required a checkpoint? As they continued deeper into the jungle, her phone buzzed. No signal. Perfect. After an hour, the SUV pulled up to an isolated marina, not a tourist dock, not a fishing village. Just a stretch of metal containers, one rusty warehouse, and a single white speedboat tied to a post. Rocco unloaded her bags. Elijah is waiting at the base camp. We board now. Sierra hesitated. You said the storm was coming. Is it safe? Rocco looked at her for the first time, directly, sharply. That's why we need to leave. He motioned to the boat. She stepped toward it slowly, every instinct begging her to run. But where? They were miles from town, surrounded by jungle and men she didn't know. As Rocco untied the ropes, a thought hit her like a punch. How did Elijah know she would accept the job? He booked everything before she even confirmed. Before she could finish that thought, an engine roared behind them. Another boat, approaching fast. Rocco's expression finally changed, not to anger, but fear. Who was approaching the dock? And why was Rocco suddenly scared for the first time? The approaching engine echoed across the empty coastline, cutting through the damp air like a warning siren. Sierra turned toward the sound. A second speedboat, dark gray, low, fast, sliced through the waves, heading straight for the dock. Rocco swore under his breath in Tagalog. That was the first crack in his cold, controlled demeanor. He grabbed Sierra by the arm, guiding her toward the white boat. Get in. Now. Who is that? Another crew? She asked. No. Move. The tone in his voice wasn't authoritative anymore. It was urgent, almost panicked. That scared Sierra more than anything else so far. The gray boat accelerated, its engine shrieking. Two men stood on the deck, both wearing tactical vests. That alone made Sierra's pulse spike. This wasn't a tourist group. Not fishermen. Not Coast Guard. Something else. Rocco shoved Sierra into the white speedboat and jumped in after her. He slammed the throttle. Forward. The boat lurched, its nose lifting as it shot away from the dock. Sierra clung to the railing. What's happening? Rocco didn't answer. His jaw was clenched tight as he zigzagged across the choppy water. The gray boat followed, closing the distance with terrifying speed. The men on board shouted something, words lost to the wind, but the tone was unmistakable. Commands. Sierra ducked as a blast echoed. A warning shot. A real gunshot. What the hell is going on? She screamed. Rocco finally spoke, yelling over the wind. They're not with Elijah. Stay low. Then who are they? Doesn't matter. Don't stand up. Another burst of noise. This time the bullet hit the water beside them, spraying cold salt water into Sierra's face. She gasped. Why are they shooting at us? Rocco didn't answer immediately. He cut sharply toward the open sea, waves slamming against the hull. Then he said something that made Sierra's blood turn to ice. Because they think I'm taking you somewhere I'm not supposed to. Sierra's breath caught. What does that mean? It means, Rocco growled, fighting the wheel as the gray boat closed in. Elijah's little expedition isn't what he told you. Or me. Sierra stared at him, horrified. You said you were his logistics lead. I am. Was. But something's wrong. His team isn't answering. The permits he claimed to file. Non-existent. And those guys back there? They've been watching this marina for 3 days. 3 days. Before she even arrived. Rocco made a split-second decision, turning the boat toward a narrow gap between two limestone cliffs. The gray boat followed but had to slow down to avoid smashing into the rocks. It bought them seconds, not minutes. Sierra grabbed the railing, voice shaking. Where are you taking me? Rocco gritted his teeth. To the only place Elijah said no one would ever find. Her stomach dropped. What was on this so-called restricted island? And why did Elijah make sure only one person knew its location? The boat shot out from between the limestone cliffs, the water smoothing as they entered a wide channel that stretched toward open sea. The gray boat was still behind them, farther now, but not gone. Rocco's hands stayed tight on the wheel, his eyes never leaving the narrowing horizon. Sierra crawled up just enough to look ahead. Where are we going? Tell me the truth this time. Rocco exhaled hard. Elijah called it Arcadia. Locals call it something else. What? His jaw clenched. The island of the unreturned. A chill rippled through Sierra. That's not real. That's some ghost story fishermen tell tourists. Rocco shook his head. Not a ghost story. A restricted conservation zone used by private agencies for controlled research. No civilians allowed. No flights overhead. No Coast Guard access without clearance. That's illegal. Yeah, he muttered. Which is why Elijah didn't want anyone except you going there. Sierra's heartbeat kicked up. Why me? You're a videographer, Rocco said. He needed someone who could document something. Something he doesn't want on public record yet. Sierra swallowed hard. What kind of something? Rocco hesitated, the first hesitation she had seen from him. Before he could answer, the sky cracked with thunder. Dark clouds barreled toward them from the west. The storm he warned her about wasn't just coming. It was here early. Hold on, Rocco shouted. Waves slammed against the bow, spraying them both. Sierra clutched the seat as the boat bounced violently. The gray boat struggled behind them, tossed by the surf, but still in pursuit. Lightning split the sky. Rocco cursed. They're not stopping. They want you. Elijah wants you. And I'm stuck in the middle. Sierra's voice shook but held steady. Why did you take the job if everything looked suspicious? Rocco glanced at her, really looked. Because he paid me half up front. Enough to fix my brother's medical bills. Enough to make me ignore the bad feeling in my gut. He looked away. But I didn't know he wanted exclusivity. He told me if anyone else contacted you, the deal was off. That should have been the first red flag. The waves worsened. The boat dipped dangerously. Sierra gripped the rail as they crested a huge swell, and then she saw it. An island. Jagged black cliffs. Thick green jungle. No beaches, no villages, no boats. Just wilderness rising. From the ocean like a fortress. That's Arcadia, she whispered. Rocco nodded grimly. That's where Elijah told me to take you. But he didn't say why. And those guys chasing us. They might be trying to stop us, or trying to stop you. Sierra stared at the island, dread swirling in her chest. What happens when we reach it? The motor whined as Rocco pushed it to its limit. Whatever Elijah planned. And whatever he planned for you. It doesn't involve a camera. What was Elijah hiding on Arcadia? And why did he need Sierra to see it firsthand? Rain hammered the speedboat as Rocco steered them toward a narrow break in the cliffs, the only visible entry point to the island. The gap was so tight the hull scraped rock as they squeezed through, the sound shrill enough to make Sierra's teeth clench. Once they passed the cliff mouth, the water calmed inside a hidden cove, sheltered from the storm. The place was eerily still, like a giant natural amphitheater carved from stone. Sierra's breath hitched. You've been here before? Rocco shook his head. No. Elijah gave me GPS coordinates and strict instructions. No broadcasting, no sharing. Location, and no contacting him during approach. That's not suspicious at all, she muttered. He cut the engine. The boat drifted toward a small dock, old, wooden, and half-broken. 2 figures stood waiting in rain ponchos, but they didn't move, didn't wave, didn't show any sign of greeting. They simply watched. Sierra leaned closer. Are they Elijah's crew? Rocco didn't answer. The moment they docked, the taller figure stepped forward. He wore a black headset and carried a tablet sealed in a waterproof case. Identification, he demanded. Rocco raised his hands. Relax. Elijah booked us. I'm escorting the videographer. The man checked the tablet, scanning through what looked like encrypted notes. After a long moment, he nodded. Bring the girl. Elijah is waiting. The girl? Sierra stiffened. I have a name. He didn't acknowledge her. Rocco stepped protectively beside her. Where's Elijah? He said he'd meet us at the shoreline. He's at the observation facility, the man replied. He wants her brought immediately. You can follow, but your access is restricted. Rocco muttered under his breath. This is getting worse by the minute. The 2 poncho-clad men led them up a narrow jungle path. The rain soaked the leaves around them, making everything glisten in a muted green glow. Strange metal poles lined parts of the trail, thin, silver rods with blinking red lights. Monitoring towers, Sierra whispered. For wildlife research. The guard didn't respond, but his silence felt like an answer, not wildlife. Then Sierra heard it, a low hum, mechanical yet rhythmic. As they followed the path, the trees opened into a clearing, and there it was. A massive steel structure standing 3 stories high, shaped like a half-dome, covered in solar panels and antennae. It resembled a hybrid between an observatory and a military installation. Harsh white lights illuminated the entrance. Sierra stopped walking. This isn't an expedition camp. Rocco whispered. This looks like a black site lab. Before Sierra could question him further, the metallic doors hissed open, and Elijah Hart stepped out, not smiling, not welcoming. His expression cold, focused, intent. Sierra, he said, voice echoing under the metal roof. I'm glad you made it. We have very limited time. Her pulse drummed. Limited time for what? He stepped closer, eyes gleaming. For the experiment. And for you to understand why you were chosen. What experiment was Elijah preparing? And what did Sierra have to do with it? Sierra felt her entire body tense as Elijah Hart approached. Gone was the adventurous, charismatic filmmaker she had spoken to for weeks. The man in front of her was different. Colder, sharper, calculating. His hair was slicked back, his clothes completely dry despite the storm outside. He had been waiting. Rocco stepped in front of Sierra. "You didn't tell me we were bringing her into a facility," he said, voice low. "What is this, Elijah?" Elijah tilted his head, unfazed. "You were hired for transport, not questions. Follow protocols, and you'll get paid." Rocco didn't move. "What protocols? You told me this was an expedition." Elijah's smile was thin. "It is, just not the kind you assumed." Two guards stepped behind Elijah, each holding compact rifles, quiet, advanced models. Sierra had only seen in documentaries about private security firms. Not military, not police. Independent. Untouchable. "Sierra," Elijah said, ignoring Rocco, "come inside. You're the only reason this island is operational today." Sierra's throat tightened. "What do you want with me?" "I want your skill," he replied. "And your reaction." "My reaction?" "You're here to film something historic," Elijah said. "But before that, I need to know how an untrained observer responds to a controlled threat." "What threat?" Sierra demanded. Elijah turned, motioning for her to follow. "Come, I'll show you." The guards closed in. Rocco leaned toward her. "Don't go alone," he whispered. "Stay behind me." Elijah led them through the steel doors. Inside, the temperature dropped instantly, ice-cold air. Conditioning blasting through sterile halls lined with white lights and reinforced glass walls. The humming Sierra heard earlier was louder here, vibrating through the floor. "What is this place?" she whispered. "A testing ground," Elijah replied. "Decades ahead of anything the public knows exists." They reached a large observation window overlooking a sealed chamber. At first, Sierra saw nothing. Just a large empty room with metal flooring and floodlights. Then she heard breathing. Not human breathing. Heavier. Rough. Labored. Something moved in the shadows, a silhouette, hunched, massive, pacing on all fours. Sierra stepped back. What is that?" Elijah pressed a hand to the glass. Proof that evolution can be engineered. The creature emerged into the light. Its eyes glowed faintly. Its movements were fluid but unnatural. Muscles visible under scarred skin. It wasn't an animal she recognized. Not a boar. Not a primate. Not anything documented. Sierra stared in horror. "You're experimenting on wildlife?" Elijah chuckled. "Oh no. Wildlife would have been the ethical route." Her stomach dropped. "Then what is it?" Elijah's smile widened, eerie and proud. "A volunteer who didn't follow instructions." Rocco grabbed Sierra's arm. "We're leaving. Now." Before they could move, alarms blared. The chamber door was opening. Why was the containment seal breaking? And was it an accident? Or did Elijah plan it from the start? The sirens wailed through the corridor, red lights strobing across the observation room. Sierra froze as the reinforced door to the containment chamber slid open inch by inch, metal grinding violently. The mutated creature inside snapped its head toward the opening, nostrils flaring as it sensed freedom. Rocco swore loudly. "Elijah, shut it." Now, Elijah didn't move. If anything, he looked satisfied. "This isn't a breach," he said calmly. "This is phase 2. Sierra's pulse spiked. "Phase 2 of what?" "Elijah," Rocco yelled again, drawing a step closer. "If that thing gets out, it won't attack without provocation," Elijah said, "unless it detects fear or aggression. That's the entire point of this evaluation." He turned to Sierra. "And I need to see how you react in real conditions." Sierra backed away, shaking. "You're insane. Close the door." Elijah looked straight into her eyes, unblinking. "I chose you because you're intuitive. Because you stay calm under pressure. I needed someone whose reactions would give me honest data." He tapped a command on his tablet. The chamber door fully opened. The creature stepped into the corridor. Massive, breathing in guttural bursts. Head turning slowly as if scanning for its target. Its skin was pale, stretched, and faintly bruised in patterns that suggested surgical reconstruction. Human, but not human anymore. Sierra covered her mouth. "Oh my God, that was a person." Rocco grabbed her wrist. "Run." Elijah's voice boomed behind them. "Don't run. You'll trigger it." But Sierra and Rocco were already sprinting down the polished hallway. The creature bellowed, a horrifying, guttural sound, and lunged after them. "Great," Rocco muttered. "Now it's triggered." They flew past doors and intersections, alarms echoing everywhere. Guards yelled into earpieces, scrambling into defensive formations. But the creature barreled forward with terrifying speed, slamming into walls, leaving dents in solid steel. "Left!" Rocco shouted. They turned into a maintenance corridor, slipping on the wet floor from a leaking pipe. The Creature skidded behind them, but regained balance instantly. Rocco, Sierra gasped. We can't outrun that thing. We don't need to outrun it. We need to outsmart it. He shoved open a heavy door marked power grid. Inside, the hum of electrical generators vibrated the walls. Rocco slammed the door behind them and jammed a metal rod through the handle. The creature crashed into it a second later. The door bent inward but held. For now, Sierra leaned against the generator, chest heaving. Elijah is letting it chase us. This is all part of some twisted test. Rocco nodded. He wants footage. Real panic. Real fear. Her voice trembled. So what does he want to prove? Rocco looked at the door as it bulged under another impact. That he can create a predator you can't escape. The generator lights flickered. The lock cracked. The creature roared. How do you escape something engineered to haunt? Especially when the man who created it controls the entire facility? The power room door buckled under the creature's weight, metal shrieking as deep dents formed around the hinges. Sierra backed away, her breath coming in sharp bursts, the metallic smell of electricity filling the air. Rocco scanned the room quickly. Generators, wiring conduits, control panels, no other exit. We're trapped, Sierra whispered. Rocco shook his head. Not trapped. Cornered. There's a difference. Another crash. The hinges tore halfway off the frame. Rocco pointed to a narrow service vent above the generators, barely 2 feet wide. You can fit through that. Sierra's eyes widened. What about you? I'll find another way. No. Sierra snapped. I'm not leaving you with that thing. Rocco grabbed her shoulders, voice firm. Sierra, listen to me. I'm not dying in a tin can. I've survived worse than this. You crawl through that vent, get to the upper decks, and find an exit route. I'll slow it down. Before she could argue again, the door screamed as the final hinge tore loose. The creature roared, a horrible, distorted sound like a warped human cry. Rocco shoved her toward the vent. Go. She climbed onto the generator, yanked open the vent grate, and squeezed inside just as the door exploded outward. Metal shrapnel scattered across the floor. The creature burst in, crashing over equipment as it lunged at Rocco. Sierra crawled through the tight metal tunnel, hard in her throat. Sparks burst behind her. Rocco must have smashed something electrical to distract it. She kept moving, ignoring the burn in her elbows, the claustrophobic walls, the thunder outside. The vent branched into 2 paths. No time to think. She turned right. After several meters, the vent sloped upward. Sierra pushed with her feet until she reached a grate above a hallway. She kicked it out, crawled through, and dropped to the floor. She was alone. Lights flickered as backup generators kicked in. The facility groaned under the storm's pressure. Voices echoed through the hall. Elijah's guards. Containment breach. Target escaping. Elijah wants visual confirmation she's alive. Sierra pressed herself against the wall. Elijah wanted her alive, not safe. Alive to record data. Alive to see his creation perform. She ducked into a nearby room and locked the door behind her. The room was filled with screens, surveillance monitors showing every corridor of the facility. Dozens of camera feeds. Sierra scanned them desperately. Her breath caught. On one screen, Rocco ran through a stairwell, bleeding from his shoulder, the creature only steps behind. On another feed, Elijah walked calmly through the chaos, speaking into an earpiece, eyes sharp, with purpose. And then Sierra saw something else, something worse. A second containment chamber. Its door already open. And inside, another shape moving in the dark. Her heart plummeted. There's more than one. She leaned in closer and froze. Because on the next screen, Elijah looked directly into a camera and smiled, as if he knew exactly which monitor she was watching. Why was Elijah smiling? And what did he just unleash into the facility? Elijah's smile lingered on the monitor, calm, confident, disturbingly satisfied. Sierra felt her stomach twist. He wasn't surprised she found the surveillance room. He wanted her to. He lifted a small metallic device into view, oval-shaped, with a blinking red core. She didn't know what it was, but his next words, spoken into his earpiece, made her blood run cold. Initiate Protocol Apex. Release both specimens. Sierra's breath caught. Both? There were 2 creatures loose now? The facility lights dimmed, replaced by pulsing red emergency glows. On the monitors, sealed. Doors slid open automatically. Guards panicked. Sierra watched as 2 hulking silhouettes moved through separate corridors, one chasing Rocco, the other moving in a disturbingly coordinated pattern. Not random, not feral. Hunting. Elijah's controlling them. Sierra whispered. He's guiding them like drones. But the more she watched, the more she realized their movements weren't programmed. They responded to vibrations, sound, heat. They adapted. They learned. Elijah wanted chaos, real, unpredictable reactions. Human instinct versus engineered predator. Sierra backed away from the screens. She needed Rocco. They had to leave. Now, she slipped into the hallway and kept low, moving fast but quiet. The alarms masked her. Footsteps. At the end of the corridor, she found an emergency elevator. She pressed the button. Nothing. Of course, she muttered. Power override. She turned to head for the stairs. Then a voice echoed overhead through the facility speakers. Sierra, stop running. Elijah's voice, emotionless, factual. She froze. You came here because you're exceptional. You adapt. You improvise. You see what others miss. That's exactly what I need. Sierra moved backwards, pulse hammering. Stay alive long enough, and you'll understand the purpose of this project. And if you don't, a beat of silence. The data from your failure will be just as valuable. She ran. Down the hall. Past broken lights. Past discarded rifles. Past claw marks gouged into steel. The facility shook suddenly, a thunderous boom from deeper inside. Sierra whipped around the corner and almost slipped in a puddle of water dripping from a broken pipe. Voices ahead, guards. Specimen 2 breached the stairwell. Level 3 is lost. We can't reach Hart. Sierra pushed past them. Where's the exit? Where's the marina? One guard grabbed her arm. You need to stay here. He wants. A monstrous roar cut him off. The guard's eyes widened. Go. Sierra sprinted down the staircase, 2 steps at a time, until she reached level 1. The door was bent, half open. She shoved herself through and collided with Rocco. He was limping, soaked in sweat, one side of his shirt shredded and stained with blood. But he was alive. Sierra, he gasped. We need to move, now. Rocco, there's 2 of them. His eyes widened, but only for a second. Then we don't have much time. Behind them, another roar echoed down the stairwell. How do you escape an island designed to trap you, and a man who engineered the predators? Hunting you? Rocco grabbed Sierra by the wrist and pulled her down the dim corridor. Every few seconds, the entire facility shuddered as something enormous slammed into the walls above them. Water dripped from burst pipes, sparks hissed from exposed wiring, alarms wailed in a broken rhythm. The entire structure was failing. Rocco, Sierra gasped, struggling to keep up. The creatures, they're loose. Both of them. I know, he panted. That's why we're not heading back the way I came. The building opened into a large cargo platform. Crates, supply racks, oxygen tanks stacked. For expedition teams that never arrived. At the far end, a half-open steel gate led to the shoreline. And beyond it, Sierra saw the storm-ravaged cove. Their path to the sea. This way, Rocco urged. But as they ran toward the gate, a harsh metallic slam echoed behind them, followed by a low, rattling growl. One of the creatures. It crawled into view, its elongated limbs scraping the floor, its chest heaving with distorted breaths. Its eyes reflected the red emergency lights, glowing like a predator sensing blood. Sierra froze. Rocco pulled his knife, small, useless, but stood in front of her anyway. The creature lowered itself, coiling, preparing to pounce. Then a deafening blast shattered the standoff. A gunshot. Precise. High caliber. The creature screeched, staggering as a tranquilizer dart pierced its neck. It crashed sideways. Into a cargo crate. Sierra spun around. Elijah Hart stood on the upper catwalk, rifle raised, raincoat flapping in the wind. His face was calm, almost triumphant. You passed every threshold I designed, he called down. Fear response. Cognitive clarity. Adaptive decision-making. You're remarkable, Sierra. Stay away from us, she shouted. You still don't understand. Elijah descended the stairs with measured steps. I didn't bring you here to kill you. I brought you here to choose you. Rocco stepped forward. Choose her for what? Elijah's smile grew chilling. A new program. Apex 11. I need someone who can document it, someone whose instincts are stronger than fear, someone who can witness what humanity will become. Sierra's voice trembled with rage. You're sick. And yet, Elijah replied softly, you survived. The second creature roared somewhere inside the facility, the sound echoing like a death sentence. Rocco grabbed Sierra's hand. Forget him, run. They sprinted for the shoreline. Elijah didn't try to stop them by force. He simply watched. That was worse. Sierra and Rocco shoved through the gate and into the storm-battered cove. The white speedboat, the one they arrived in, was still tied to the dock, rocking violently in the waves. Rocco practically threw Sierra inside. "Untie it. Go." Sierra fumbled with the rope, fingers shaking. Lightning split the sky. Behind them, Elijah stepped slowly onto the dock, calm amidst chaos. "You can run," he said. But Arcadia doesn't let its subjects leave. Rocco leapt into the boat and slammed the throttle. The engine roared to life, propelling them away from the island just as one of the creatures burst from the facility and onto the dock, snarling at the receding boat. Waves smashed against the hull as they sped into the storm. The island shrank behind them, swallowed by rain and mist. Sierra collapsed into her seat, trembling. Rocco kept one hand on the wheel, breathing hard. "Did we escape?" she whispered. Rocco didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "We escaped the island." He looked over his shoulder, eyes dark with concern. "But Elijah saw your face. And a man like him doesn't let go." Sierra stared into the stormy horizon, realizing the truth. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. Thank you for watching till the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe.